Ivan wasn't dead. Matty tightened his grip on Ivan and moved as quickly as he could across the Ananke's deck. Somewhere behind him was that mechanic with the curly hair, Althea Bastet. Ivan had managed to talk her down, but Matty half suspected that she would change her mind before they could reach his ship and shoot them in the back. Let her try, he thought, with sudden wildness. Let her turn that gun on them. Let her try to take them down now. Abandoned ships stood like tombstones in the Ananke's docking bay. To Matty's right was his and Ivan's old ship, the Arnoon, torn open and inoperable. To his left was the bullet-shaped vessel that bitch Ida Stays had flown in. Matty would have liked to light it on fire and let it burn out on the Ananke's deck. There was no time for that now. He guided Ivan into his new ship, the Copenhagen, and took a moment to ease him down onto the mattress in the cabin, one hand catching Ivan's head when it dipped on his neck. Ivan stared up at him, his blue eyes turned to black in the dimness of the cabin. Matty left him to close the hull door and jog onto the piloting platform, hitting the controls to wake the computer from its watchful stillness. The Copenhagen had only one main room. Cabinets lined the walls. An elevated platform separated the piloting area from the rest of the room, and a mattress had been shoved flush to the wall. Behind him, Matty heard Ivan breathing, the exhalations too evenly spaced to be anything but deliberately timed. He must be counting in his head. With a roar and a rumble, the engine ignited. The floor underfoot began to shudder. The docking bay doors were not opened, couldn't open yet. The room had to depressurize first, but he couldn't be certain they would open. That mechanic might stop them. She was more unpredictable than she'd seemed at first, if even Ivan couldn't get a total handle on her. And even if Althea Bastet decided to let them go, there was still the Ananke. The virus that Matty had put into the Ananke's computer had grown worse somehow. He wasn't certain how the ship had decided to contact him and let him know of Ivan's danger. He wasn't certain what had happened to the ship while he had been gone. But whatever had happened, two things were certain. The ship was unpredictable and the ship was dangerous. Matty was getting himself and Ivan the hell away from it. Overhead, the docking bay doors to the Ananke began to open. Matty had the Copenhagen's thrusters on in a moment, the ship lifting off. Behind him, he heard Ivan's harsh-edged breaths. They could make it now, he told himself, even if the mechanic and the machine changed their minds. They could make it. The docking bay doors did not close again, and in a moment, the Copenhagen had passed out into the open stars. Matty let his head hang, let some of the tension slacken from his shoulders. Behind him, he heard Ivan's breathing hitch, then resume its carefully measured count. Matty lifted his head, squared his shoulders, and quickly punched in his prearranged course. They were out, but they still had to get away. The Copenhagen began to pick up speed. A burst of static grabbed him like a hand around the throat. Matty lifted his hands from the computer as if it might bite him. The static burst quieted, the sound of it localizing to the communications equipment at Matty's side. "Goodbye," said the communications in what sounded like the voice of a young girl. It was the voice of a girl who did not exist. The voice had been entirely manufactured by whatever disease had warped the functions of the spaceship Ananke. Matty reached out and shut the communications equipment down. Backward. 2 days before Matty dragged Ivan off the Ananke, Matty Gale walked into his foster sister's bar and found her standing on a chair, digging a camera out of the wall with her nails. He did not know what he expected to see when he entered the room. Maps and weapons strewn over the bar's faux wood tables, maybe, or an army of people gathered to listen raptly to the gospel of the Moltenos. But the bar was clean and bare, and completely empty except for Constance, who had dragged one chair out of the tidy arrangement of chairs and tables on the main floor so that she could use it as a step stool. Matty pushed his hands down into his pockets and let the door to the kitchen swing shut behind him. Her fingers, tore at the crumbling plaster of the wall, digging around for wires. She had pulled nearly all of the camera's hidden structure from the wall, and the camera as exposed was larger than it had appeared when it had been embedded in the house. The metallic structures that had anchored it and the wires that had powered it had a dark and twisted look to them. Surely by now most, if not all, of the camera had been exorcised from the wall. Yet Constance kept digging with single-minded intensity, plaster flaking beneath her nails. Constance said, "What is it?" The lighting in the bar was so dim in comparison to the sunlight out the windows that Constance was nearly a silhouette. But Matty felt that he had never seen her so clearly. He said, "I guess I was stupid not to realise it before." The relentless digging of her fingers stilled. "It's not like you didn't tell me outright," Matty said. "It's not like Mila didn't tell me. I guess I've been pretty stupid, haven't I?" For a moment she was sepulchral, the light gleaming off the extended edge of her arm like sunlight in eclipse. Then with a swift yank, Constance pulled the camera from the wall. Metal and plaster snapped, and it came out in her hand, trailing wires like optical nerves. She stepped down from the chair and placed the camera on the nearest table, then dusted plaster from her palms in silhouette against the sun outside. Every continuing second of silence from her confirmed Matty's fears, and something unbelieving and dark swelled inside him.